All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to Mania 70 World Cup 2025. And here we are. We have once again, after a grueling last week wait for the qualifiers to show up, and then we have all the live results out of the qualifiers that these teams participated in. And I'm Mifa, and I'll be joining here for the reveal of the qualifiers with Tails. How's it going?
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to see what all these teams have done this week, and also excited for the Mappool Showcase afterwards. Gonna see a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess from from a viewer standpoint, the qualifiers for I guess for this particular tournament, especially for the 70, has been quite a fascinating to watch, especially for from an outsider, from like a 70 perspective, and coming towards like a new fresh perspective on how 7 key unfolds for this particular tournament. Has some different change, I guess, in terms of format, but I guess these teams in particular has been quite looking forward to see how the I guess the map goes, especially from the qualifiers itself. So these scores, I mean, it's really I guess really cool to see how these teams will perform. I guess on a live stage, especially.
Yeah, it was a pretty short pool this time for all 8 maps, so a lot of just gaming has been going on very quickly. So it's not been too stamina draining this round, at least for people.
All right, and I guess we should be ready to see how I guess the results for the seas. Right? So shall we go on to see how the teams perform on the qualifiers for I guess for today and yesterday?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
All right, and once we get in, I guess we get to see I guess from the last I guess the seed from the qualifiers. So we getting I guess we're getting Italy there this time, especially for the last seed, doing quite fine, honestly, because of the performances so far. We got quite a few, like Rise and LN scores have been quite putting up a good fight, especially Rise is by itself on this type of difficulty has been quite quite hard. So it's really fast. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely some of these like scores are gonna be a little bit troublesome for the lower seeds, and we see that here. So Italy not making it this year, sadly.
Yeah, I guess just by looking forward, I guess that's what's fascinating to me is that the speed pick, especially for like Bloody Mally by Dash 45, it was like 1.55 as like the number 38, and it's the highest score from Italy. So, like speed delay chart has been tend to be like quite spread out throughout, but having 1.55 as the lowest team qualifier score is actually quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right. We should be getting on to the, I guess the last seed 37, I should say.
yeah.
Since Italy has been there, and we got
And
the Pakistan.
yeah, a new player in this tournament. It's the first time I think Pakistan has participated in any main World Cup tournament actually, and there he's going here at seed 37.
Yeah, set 37 has been quite a newcomer, I should say, with access to Frank White and Nico for like the team composition for like the three main players for Pakistan. But I guess judging by the qualifier scores, I mean they're not too far off. Then uh, I guess then what most people would say that this is like LN scores have been relatively average, and also like the hybrids itself has been putting up quite a good fight by themselves, like for like number 36 and number 35. I guess by the Rise itself is decently great actually. Bloody Mel has this time it's like a 100,000 points difference than like the from the Ilias qualifiers.
Yeah, they did a lot better than, you know, first time joining. You know, you don't expect too much. They actually did pretty well on the long note side of things and hybrid.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can give it time for Pakistan to shine more. I guess for like next year if they happen to be participating again for the World Cup. So yeah, we're just moving on to seed number 36, which might be cutting it close, but this time it is Guatemala for number 36.
Yeah, Guatemala just did a bit better here on the rice picks than the other teams before them. So, but overall, just you know, pretty solid.
Yeah, marginally improved from I guess the last year's placing. I think it was like 37, which having a one up from like last year is definitely cool to see. 1.69 million for Bloody Malia too. Even though that's still number 35, it by averaging like about like 840,000 score from the late chart is quite good honestly.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's gonna be kind of scary to see what people are gonna get on the speed pick if score's already this high.
Yeah, we're moving on to I believe seat number 35, which a lot of people may be expecting, but this time it is Austria here.
Yeah, Austria seeming to get around 34 on the rice picks, and then struggled a bit more with the long notes. um, at least comparison.
Yeah, this time around, like the rise on average is like quite solid across the board, like all C34 from like the rise itself. The scores by itself is also just spread out throughout. You got like the speed chart, Big Bloody Mally with like around almost 1.7 million, and then also Spring Carnival, which I believe like the one of the last rise that is more focused on late game scenarios, is like 1.3 million, which is probably like centered around like 90% accuracy like that. It's still pretty cool, but it just fell short of like the actual, top 32 for qualifying into the tournament.
Also, yeah, I just wanna note that this is actually seed 35. I know it says seed 34. This is seed 35.
Ah, yeah, okay, yeah, C35. Maybe there's some kind of like a rounding or matchup error there, but yeah, we're good there. So
Yeah.
this is definitely C35s, which that's still like three teams. Well, I guess the top three, the three that is out of the top 32, which is still cutting it close, but it's still not quite enough to qualify to like the top 32 anyway. And right, we're now moving on to this time around. This is I guess C34, which maybe matches up with Austria, and now it is actually Ukraine this time.
Yeah, Ukraine getting a pretty solid performance across all of them. They're pretty they hit 35 on rice, 34 on hybrid, and 34 on long note. So I just gotta prove it a little bit maybe for next year. But solid performance across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe like the seat being 34 which matches up with Austria like before, but this time actually the score on average has been quite solid as well, like 35, 34, and also along there for 34 as well. Although even though it kind of falls behind on like Rice, like Bloody Mally's score has been a little bit worse than Austria, for example. But the later game, like Skip and Step and Spring Carnival, has been shown quite a bit of a fight there for the late game, but it was just fell short. So essentially, they still have like around two teams more to beat out the top 32, for example.
Yeah. And I
Now,
think
yeah, we're moving on to the last of the not qualifying for the tournament for the teams here, and it is actually going to be Australia here. Unfortunately, just fell short out of the top 32 here.
Yeah, they have a really good score on Bloody Mally. I can see here. They got 29, so no. Just the other scores just not quite making it.
What's interesting to me is that like even with the Bloody Mary score like 1.888, it's still like number 29 from like this tournament, which is centering like average of like 940,000. It is still quite high for a score, but it's still like number 29. And that's kind of funny to me as well because hybrid and long on average is C32, like rank 32, which is just about making it. Unfortunately, it just kind of fell from like the rise score itself. Even though it's different team members from like last year's, which definitely just weakened by itself, but it's still really good qualifier scores. But yeah, that's the last team that did make it to like the top 32, and now we're entering into like the qualifying zone here. Starting from the numbers seed number 32, the teams that are qualified this time around, one of them is me. For the teams are going to be, drum roll, please. It is Czechia this time, although just still cutting it close after last year's placing. Although I mean last year was like top 24, but this one is top 32. So congratulations for qualifying there.
Yeah, first time they actually qualified this year. They actually seem to be doing pretty well on the rice picks, especially on the tag map with 1,844,000. Super solid here.
It does really help when you have like an early game that centered around like like 920,000 on average, like 29, 28. Although it just this time the competitive side of the Czechia has been lost to like Australia, like from the team that we showed before, because on average it's like 32 for a hybrid and long notes. But Rice, it carries on through, so that's enough to qualify. So congratulations there for Czechia. And now we're moving on to seat number 31, and it's going to be Mexico this time. Quite a decent average scores for hybrid and long notes there in particular.
Yeah, we see really good scores there on the coordination with on the 1.8 million scores range there. This is pretty good.
Yeah, hybrid and I guess long note, yellow smile in particular also not quite. I guess not quite the coordination, but it's still like 27, which is quite high on the placing, yeah, like around just about almost 900,000 on average. Bloody Mally as well, just barely making it to the top 32, which like around 1.87, which is still very good. Even though the last year's placing is number 30, which by definition, on last year they didn't qualify, but this time it was just about enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving on, to seat number 30. The 30 is actually quite a surprise this time. It is Lithuania.
Yeah. So Lithuania seems to have improved their scores quite a lot from last year, and they actually got a really good score on Bloody Mally and Heikuku. No. Yeah, the hybrid too.
Yeah, 956 on average for Bloody Mally. I believe it must have been like one full combo or something around that, because the speed 1.912 is still quite high. Number 24 on the rise side, even though everything else just centered around high rank 20s, something like that. And hybrid and long nose as well. Heiku being number 26 right there is still very good scores for these team in particular. So congratulations there for Lithuania. And now we'll be moving on to seat number 29, which maybe we're entering in like quite high scores this time, right? But this time it's going to be Thailand here. Huh.
Yeah, Thailand unfortunately dropping off a lot from last year. They were 5th last year, but they still have some pretty strong scores on long notes this year, especially. I think that
Oh
stands out a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, they still have a very good scores there for the long nose side, even though they don't have the core players from 70 last year, like Law School, Nasurio, Kenzie. But this time around, it's a fresh new perspective here. But one thing to point out is the Rice scores are not particularly that high, but Longlow is really helping them in the long run. I believe like Nano Bandasi was also performing very good on Longlow's side, so I believe they might took it based off Nano Bandasi's scores. Haven't as well, so it could be a good matchup for the Long picks in particular.
Yeah. And moving on to the next team.
Yeah, next seat number 28, and it's going to be Norway here.
Yeah, Norway improving the scores from last year, moving up 1 seed, and this time they qualified. We
Yeah,
could
actually,
see a really good hybrid one.
yeah, really good hiring one, being the entering the top 20-ish there, like 1.89 scores there. I believe like the long nose scores is also decently well for I guess a quote unquote Ellen release coordination, although it doesn't really qualify as an Ellen release because it's still pretty dense. Number 27 is still very good there for on the lower side of the top 32.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
moving on. Back again, yeah, moving on to C27. 27 is quite a bit, and it's going to be United Kingdom here.
yeah,
Very good score on the late game, especially for Rice there.
super good score on the court stream map. Yeah, um, we do see a bit of a drop off from last year, but um, overall, just really solid on the court stream map this year. Struggling a little bit in the long notes, especially, but hybrids, though, they're doing okay as well. Yeah. Moving on to the next one, we got the Netherlands. The Netherlands also dropping off a little bit from last year, but doing pretty well on the long note side, especially. They got your top 23 here, and then on the hybrid side, on the Rice side, they're not too bad either. They're just a little bit behind at 26, so gonna be kind of cool to see what they'll be able to do next time.
Yeah, pretty spread throughout the scores there. So not particular, not having that. I guess the one strength that is separating out from like the rest of the team so far. But this is on average quite an all-rounded score. So very good showing there. And we're moving
Yeah.
on to seed number 25 here. It's going to be Singapore this time.
Yeah, Singapore improving their scores quite a bit from last year, moving all the way up to C25 from 33. Uh, we see especially in long notes, they're doing super well. Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit of struggle on some of the rice picks.
yeah, we can see quite a bit of shift there, looking by the scores. I guess from the early and mid game polls, you can see that it has quite a bit of a showing there. Like Bloody Valley being 1.92, and Fine Logic on the hybrid side is like 1.88, and it's still like number 24. But if you look at the last two Rice picks, you can see it has a bit of a struggle there, like around 1.7, 1.65, and it still barely qualifies into like the top 32 seeds, even with the scores. The early game is very helping them, especially like long note side as well, like Yoakimai and Yellow Smile as well, being quite a definitely strong showing there.
Yeah, and moving on
Moving,
to
yeah,
C24.
yeah. C24 is going to be Poland here. Quite a good score there, but from the speed pick, Bloody Mally being almost 1.96.
Yeah, we do see a bit of a drop off here from last year as well, going all the way from 9 to 24. But we do see that they're able to play when it comes to it, especially on the speed maps. They have really good scores, so they'll be scary to face off against, I think, and especially in the round of 32.
Actually, yeah, looking at the interesting scores on the right side especially, even though their late game might not shine that much, but like the first two rice picks in particular, like 1.9, almost 1.9 and 1.958, it's still like quite a decently high seed, especially. Hybrid and Longna might be particularly average, but Yellow Smile has been showing quite a bit of fight there, like almost 1.8. So that's like the top 20. I guess the no seed number 24 there. So even though mine fell off, but it's still quite a good seed there for Poland. And we're moving on to seed 23. Quite a bit of a surprise, I might mention. It's going to be Finland here.
Yeah, huge improvement from last year, going all the way from seed 34 to seed 23. We see some really good scores there on the late game rise, especially number
Oh
17
yeah.
and 16 on the mixed rise and court stream map, respectively.
Yeah,
Uh,
seat 17, seat 16 on like late game stage, like 1.84 and 1.86. If that doesn't tell you that how hard is the late game picks for qualifier and for maybe the rest of the I guess of the mid game pool, I don't know what to say. Like 1.84 being on the seat 16 and 17 is quite a tough fight, especially.
yeah, and moving on to seed 22, we have
Yeah, seat
Denmark.
22. Yeah, I guess one of the just adjacent Scandinavian countries going forward here. You know, quite a very good score on Bloody Melon and Skip and Stems in particular, like 1.944 and 1.82. Quite an decently spread throughout, almost all rounded in particular. But those scores popped off on Bloody Melon and Skip and Stems in particular.
Yeah, we do see a little bit of a drop off on the long note a little bit, but overall we're pretty all-rounded. And moving on to
Yeah.
seed 21.
C21. This is quite a bit surprise, but we're seeing Canada here on seat number 21. Even though they don't have the same team composition, team members for last year's, from like last year's, this time around, it's still showing that they still put up a good amount of fight on the long note side. You know, number 7 on Joachim Maya there.
Yeah, super high score there on the long note for the coordination map. We're actually gonna see how well they'll do on the other poll soon, but yeah, really scary to play against, I think.
Yeah, for teams out there that are facing Canada, just be wary of their scores, especially for long notes there. You don't want to get complacent and pick long notes against them, especially. But now we're moving on to seed number 20, and this time, yeah, it's going to be Estonia, the 2 members only team here.
Yeah, I wish I was as good as Hizela. We gotta put it in as well this year. Really all-rounded team this year. The placing is a little bit lower than last year, but overall really solid. Rank 20 on pretty much everything. So we'll get to see.
Yeah, all on average by itself is like say 20, but on the like hybrid and long nose have been particularly strong, and rise as well. Might not be that weak enough, but might not be that strong enough for like I guess the showing of the C20, but it's still quite a accurate showing, I would say, especially. So we're moving on to now. This time around, is we're at the top 20s, and now it's going to be the seed number 19. It's going to be Taiwan. Look at those early game scores there from Taiwan. Ophia being number 14 right there.
Yeah, super solid score there on the technical accuracy map. We also see a pretty good score on the Spring Carnival and the other Rice maps, so just in general Rice. They did, however, struggle a little bit with the long note side. A little bit more, so maybe that's a little bit of a weakness.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a weakness on the, I guess. Well, I mean, in particular, along those that the hybrid hasn't been that strong of a showing, but Taiwan on the earlier game stages might have to look out for, especially. So
Yeah.
we're going next here, seed 18. Um, I'm I'm actually kind of surprised to see seed 18 because we didn't get to see a lot of Macau from like last year. So we got Macau on seed 18.
Yeah, finally qualifying. I think they've been on like the edge of qualifying for quite a while now. And last year they were seed 25, and now they're seed 18. So super solid. And we see
Yeah.
pretty good scores on specifically the hybrid and long nose. A little bit of a struggle on the right side, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I know a little bit of Macau's team because, especially on the Mania World Cup server, they've been active, especially for randoms there. They did kind of afraid to not showing that strong enough to qualify for, I guess, for the top 32, but they qualify for a very high seed there, like a seed 18, as opposed to like seed 32, which they could be in some interesting matchups with the some of the middle seeds, especially seed 17, seed 16, for example. If they get to match up with that, then that would be quite a hilarious one to watch.
Yeah. Moving on to the next one. We have Sweden at seed
Sweden.
17. Staying consistent with last year.
Yeah, very consistent. Yeah, but look at those. Actually, the scores by on the average there, like 19 on the rise side, and the longer end being 16. I guess the scores have been kind of quite a bit sporadic, but long lows have been very strong for themselves there. Number 14, 17.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see because they actually did really well on the mixed prize pick, but not as that well on uh, the core stream pick in comparison, and they're both pretty hard. So this looks like they also have a pretty good uh like late game roster maybe.
Yeah, like on the early game pools, I would say Sweden is the one of the big contenders for I guess a tough opponent, I should say. Since like C15 on pretty much everything on the early game side, maybe on exception to an extent would be speed or delay. You can maybe give that information probably, but Sweden by itself can pretty much fight with any team with that is not the top 10 or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah,
we're moving on to seed 16. 616 would be quite a bit of a surprise to me, especially. It's going to
yeah.
be Spain. Quite a bit consistent from like last year's placing, but on average, there's no top 20s. All of them are above seed 19.
Yeah, we see a really good late game rise there, all the way up to seed 14, and also some pretty strong hybrid scores. And this will be the opponent of Sweden. We're getting into all of the opponents
Oh
now,
yeah.
once we're now that we're halfway through.
That is quite a quite a bit of opponent to go for. But like especially for seed 16, 14, and 18, it is very consistent. I guess on team in terms of deviation in between one another, but we're not basing it off because of like just by the seeds by itself. It's the scores that count, and it matters for like the I guess the actual matches coming forward. But yeah, that is seed 16. We're moving on to seed 15 this time. Look at those scores there, right on the early game side. Fine logic on hybrid and Joachim Allen coordination right there, very high.
Yeah, super good scores there on hybrid one and long note one. Yeah, very interesting to see how they're gonna do in the early game. Might want to ban some of those picks against them.
Yeah, it's to some extent their strengths have been pretty much. It's pretty clear to see that they would just go for most of the Ellens and hybrids. On the right side, it's still not that weak. It's not that weak even. You get like 1.94 on Bloody Valley and OPA with 1.91. Might be a little bit of a tricky situation for France there to maybe played some of them in like the early game pools, but that should be fine, right? Since these are meant to be like I guess harder than like the round 30 counterparts, but we don't know for sure yet since the opponent has been quite strong showing there. But we're
Yeah.
moving on to seed 14. You know, maybe quite a lot of people might have guessed that seed 14 might not make it, but this time around it's New Zealand here. So congratulations for them for having a high seed this time.
Yeah, New Zealand going from seed 27 to seed 14, super good improvement. We see really strong scores, I think, all around, and especially on long note there, on the more late game long note mix. We see the rank 9 there, really good.
Yeah, very good showing on the long note side there. At some point, like the Rise picks by itself, we're actually inching very close to, I guess, more on the higher side of the top 16. So this should be expected to see when you have a strong scores in the, I guess, in the middle seed so far. Even though seed 14 is still a very high seed to go for. Yeah, this is a strong team. I cannot stress enough that this is a strong team. So we're
Yeah.
moving on to seed 13. We got Germany this time. Very consistent from like last year's as well.
Yeah, Germany doing really well actually on the hybrids especially. But also some of the Rise picks, ooh, top 10 on
Yeah,
Rise 1 and Rise 3.
all quite consistent as well. OP and Bloody Mallet being 1.94s, and Skip instead just 100 points shy of it, but it's still like top 13, top 12 material right over there on average. Hybrid as well, they're also really good. You know, like 10 and 12. So they could actually potentially maybe making it out to at least as far as semis if they play their cards. So even though
Yeah.
long notes might not have a strong showing there, but it's still offsets by quite a bit of a rise on the hybrid picks. Maybe in the like in the I guess the quarters of line round 16, for example, they can play them just as well as this one.
Next up, I think we have a little bit of a surprise. We have Venezuela, who did not play last year, but they've gone in and they're top 12 this year. Super good Rise scores here. We see.
Yeah,
Uh,
wow. Okay, I did not expect that Venezuela can come up this. I guess this far into the seed. Like seed 12 is still very good. We're probably not have. We did know our games with Venezuela here, but like almost top, almost entering the single digit seeding for YC. Even though the hybrid might not be that strong of a showing, but again, this is still like around 132 and 16 levels, so we're expecting Venezuela to have some fight in there, so to be able to play it against their opponents there. So Venezuela, some teams might have to watch out against this team.
yeah. And next up, we have Russia. And Russia dropping a tiny bit from seed 9 to 11, but still doing super well, being single digit in both the Rise and the hybrid. Especially Rise 1 there and Rise 4. Super solid scores.
Like I wouldn't say that isn't particularly like falling just a bit, like 2 seeds from like last year, because the team members have been almost the exact same as like last year. It's just to a point that some of the teams that did play, some of the team members that didn't play like last year happens to play it this year, so it might have some shift in terms of seeding and the team members that are playing. But Russia kind of falls off into the category, but it's still, I mean, 1.95 on Bloody Mallet and Opia, and then also like Heiku being the other, I guess the more later game hybrids, 1.906. It's still very strong. Ellen as well, like being 1.9 as well.
Yeah, super solid scores there. Moving on to seed number 10. We have
Seed number 10.
Chile.
Ooh, Chile, actually, yeah. I believe they played like 2023, but not exactly 2024, I believe. But this time, qualifying as a seed number 10 is quite a bit of a quite a bit of a surprise. Just look at those. Bloody Mally's score being on the number 4 side and Fine Logic being the number 5.
Yeah, I think this team is gonna be super scary to go against if they can get scores like that.
Man, wow, okay. Well, like, just by average, it's like around 989k. So I would assume these are just two FCs, two full combos, and on those scores in particular. And Fine Logic, maybe to some extent, 1.954 is still like a two full combo scoring in the I guess in the qualifiers. Yeah. Some teams beware against Chile. Number 10 is still pretty hot.
Yeah, and next up we have Malaysia.
We're entering single digits here, so we're going to Malaysia this time.
Yeah, no Chiwi this time around, but there is a 3 new team members who have done quite well, I think, here, getting top 9 here. Especially
Yeah.
in Rise, they seem to be getting some really solid scores.
Yeah, last year being 2 team members only team, being Chiwi and Neo from like last year. But this year they have a full roster, and without Chiwi around, it might have taken a bit of a blow. But its scores are still very good for such a late game scenario. Number 7, number 6 for Skipper and Spring Carnival is still quite a rare sight, I guess to me personally, because you would normally see being early game scores happen at least higher like the like later game ones. But this one is a little bit of an exception. Yellow Smile as well, being on number 7, is also very good.
Yeah. And next up, on number 8, we have Peru.
Peru. Oh, okay. Peru is actually quite a bit of a newcomer. I don't think they played in like, or I guess they didn't. At least for a couple of years, they did play for mini World Cups, and 17 in particular. But number 8, I mean, it's a top 8. It's a top 8 or scores there.
Yeah, we were super surprised when we saw this. Peru pulling out of nowhere. They got really good scores on hybrid and long note, so be aware of that.
I'm not sure if we can call us a hermit or whatever, but number 8 for as a country that doesn't play like the past Mania World Cups in 70, it's really nice. Number 6 and number 8 for hybrid, and then all across the board have been or just around the number 10s.
Yeah. Moving on to number 7.
Yes, 7 is the lucky number, right? Yeah, but it seems it's going to be a lucky number for United States here. Just all around, the Rise scores are just on the single digits.
Yeah, super solid Rice scores, rank 5 on 3 of them, and then a little bit struggle there, maybe. I mean, not really struggle. They just didn't quite do
They
as
just
well
happen to be
as.
good.
Yeah, they just happened to be good on all of them. A little bit of maybe an outlier there on Yellow Smile and Fine Logic there, the hybrid and long note, but super solid scores all around, almost single digit and everything.
Yeah, it's just it's the fact that maybe we have a returning player from the United States from the past Media World Cup, like Alter, and Logan being Bunsen and one of the using it and change as well. So on core, it's still quite a bit of a safety, especially Alter being probably playing as well for like this year's as well. So it could help for United States in this case. No Cherney or no stupid man from like past Media World Cups. It's still quite a strong team for C7.
Yeah. And next up on seed number 6, we have Hong Kong.
Okay, Hong Kong being number 6. No, they didn't play on like the past Media World Cup in the 70, but showing off with a seed 6 just by demand. By demand is still only 1 seed off from being a single digit.
Yeah, super good scores on pretty much everything here. This is gonna be a super scary team to go against, I think, overall. I think especially the hybrid and long notes are gonna be really scary, especially later on. So,
And
better watch out.
yeah, dare I say that the top eights, we're in the big leagues. Big leagues, especially for top eight, has been at least one of them, at least one of the scores here has to be a single digit. And Top M has been showing that as well. Even though Malaysia in the being in the seed number 9, it's still like they still have one or two scores that are single digit. But yeah, Hong Kong being seed 6 is a quite a delight. I don't know they would perform if they would perform this far into to the tournament, maybe especially on semifinals or finals. But it's still a good definitely up. They have to put a good fight to be able to survive until the finals, for example.
Yeah. Moving on to seed 5, we
Yeah, seed
have
5. Ooh.
Indonesia actually improving quite a lot this year. Super solid hybrid scores, prize scores, just long note scores overall.
Yeah, almost the exact seeding for like the hybrid along us there being 4 and 3. But yeah, we're entering single digits, and by single digits, all of the scores are single digits. 1.96, 1.97, and then maybe the late game I would say is very particularly strong too. Spring Carnival being on a 1.974, even though it's just by I guess by simplicity, it's still quite a 4th stream level of dense. You know, like 1.974 being on the seed number 5 is all teams have to be wary of picking core streams against Indonesia.
Yeah. Moving on to seed number 4, we
seed
have
number yeah, we're not showing Hong Kong again. It's a
yeah,
seed 6. We're going to see this time around only top
Japan.
4 remaining, and it's going to be Japan here. Oh boy, these my scores are just so stupid.
Yeah, they've. This is definitely the strongest Japan is gonna be or has been so far. They pulled out with Suzuha this year and Misa in addition to Botanic and Ray Lily. They're just gonna be super scary, I think. Really scary on Rice, especially.
Yeah, I always find it fascinating that Japan's performances on several Mania World Cups, not just 7 key, but 4 key as well, has been they have a standout amongst themselves. And for 7 key, like you can clearly tell there's a returning player here, like you said, Suzuha being on the I guess the past 2 Mania World Cups, not 2024. They didn't play in on that one as well. Maybe 2023 they didn't play as well. The last time they did play like number on 2022, which was alongside other players like Ensana and maybe Lulu M. But this time around, Japan's coming back maybe in their strongest form. So any teams they're picking Rice is a death sentence probably for for other teams there.
Yeah. And moving on to seed number 3, we have the Philippines. Oop.
Yeah, and we have yeah we got a bit
We
spoiled right
got
there.
the Philippines.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
we're jumping far in advance there. Yeah, but yeah, you see that a little bit there, but we're good. So seat number 3 being Philippines right here. I guess even though they didn't show that much of a, I guess from example Japan that are being like seat number 2s everywhere in the rice pool, but Philippines is actually quite spread throughout. It's not just rice that they're actually having very good single digits there, but hybrid and longless have been particularly very well there.
yeah, I think they're gonna be a really good scary team to go against, especially later because they can do a little bit of everything. The players are pretty all-rounded. They've been around for quite a while, most of them.
Yeah, like Arkwin being, even though they played also in like the last year's World Cup, and Oji-san or Kura maybe for some of you that actually recognize them, and also Sani as well, returning as well back into this year. The only difference is there that there's no Barry, and also so maybe there's no other force player for the Philippines that are able to maybe go into the roster. So you know they have a tough fight against themselves there. But
Yeah.
yeah, we already seen that kind of a leak there, essentially for seed number 2. But yeah, we're just jumping right into it to seed number 2, and it's going to be China right there. Two number 1 scores, I would say. Not single digits again. All these are single digit scores. Nothing, no scores above them are like outside of the top 3. It's still all number 3 minimum.
Yeah, you don't want to play against China this year. That's super
Yeah.
scary.
They are just a stronghold, you know. Number 3 and number 2 especially, but I mean, just by looking at the scores, even though it's still not a. I mean, I guess 1.988 being the highest over it's still a core stream, and you would say that China has known their way forward in their Mania World Cup 7 and this is no exception. I mean, it's just China's scores are very very good in particular. Being number ones in the seed number ones in particular, and yeah, I guess there's no surprises in who's left in the last seed, which is seed number 1, is it?
Yeah. Next up here on seed 1, we got South Korea.
Korea, there you have it. Seed number 1 being South Korea. Almost all of them are number 1s. Just by like the other 2s being number 2 as well. So, well, what do we say about South Korea in particular? 1.994.
Yeah, I was about to say they've gotten a new player this time around, being Kalkai, who's ranked 2. So it's super scary.
And maybe to some extent Crusher as well. I do believe that Crusher is also probably it's also quite a new player as well. So the only returning players are Dresser and YZ as well. So I guess in terms of the scores, number 1s being it's just South Korea, like 997 on average, and it's also 993 on average on Bloody Melon skip and stuff. It's just all around just the South Korea's performance there.
Yeah, that Rise 4 score is so scary. 1,994k as a team score is so scary.
Yeah, so you have to kind of pray for whoever gets the South Korea matchup there to maybe just miss somewhere in the middle or randomly there.
Yeah. But I think that was all for the reveals. We will take a short break here, and then we'll get into the round of 32 Mappool Showcase. So we'll be right back.
Yeah, excited for that, so stay tuned for that one.
Alright, hello everybody. Once again, we've done a little bit of a commentator swap out, but we are back with the round of 32 Mappool Showcase for the Oceania 7Q World Cup 2025. I have swapped out for Mifa here. I'm Toph Daddy, joined yet again by Tails. How's it going?
Oh, I'm so excited for this. It's gonna be a really cool pool this time around, I think. Gonna be very excited to see what people think of it. We've been working on this one for also quite a while. It was done like 5 months ago. So prepared well in time. Now we're here to showcase this.
Yeah, and I can say, after playing through the map pool, very, very fun, so I'm excited to see what happens. I would say, difficulty-wise, it's probably around the same as last year's first pool, so nothing too crazy to see from that, but outside of that, nothing really to worry about. Just got to get into the map pool here.
Yeah. And starting off here with Rise 1, we have Maisomil, Catalina C. This is our speed pick for the pool by Bang Seok. And this is gonna be around 230 BPM, so it's a little bit lower than last qualifier here, but once we get into it, it's gonna be a bunch of single streams for the most part. We do have quite a lot of breaks, especially in the first half, however.
Yeah, there are quite a few breaks. I would say this isn't necessarily pure single streams. It feels almost like what you'd call light jump stream in 4Key, so like a light chord stream type thing, but the doubles and the triples are so few and far between that you can play it like it's all single streams.
Yeah.
but because of those, two notes, the doubles and the triples that you'll see like every now and again, like once every 4, once every 8 notes, something like that through the streams, it will be a little bit denser than your average 230 BPM single stream map.
Yeah, we do see a little bit of some streams going into it soon. It gets a little bit more intense here in the second half once we actually start to get into the streams.
Yeah, I would say that this map kind of has a little bit of a development over time. The first third isn't too bad, then you get a little bit of a break, and then the second half starts off a little bit denser, gets a little bit tougher, and then the ending really hits you pretty hard.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, we have a little build up here.
Yeah,
with the second half.
With the kinds of breaks you'll be getting, you shouldn't have really any problems with stamina. I mean, with round of 32, I don't think a lot of players are going to be having too big of an issue with stamina. But here we go. After that build-up, we get those streams. And like I said, doubles 1 every 8 notes or so. So it's slightly denser than regular 230 BPM single streams. But even then, not too bad to handle. And whenever there are doubles in these streams, they're separated to the point where they're very easy to read and almost like separate from the 2 notes are separable in your own mind, so you don't even have to like think about them as doubles almost.
Yeah. And here we go. We have a little bit of an ending here after, so don't click away from the keyboard until the song is actually over.
120,000 points right in this ending. Nothing to sneeze at. Gets really, really dense. Was definitely the hardest patterns in the map. Goes back and forth. Not the easiest to keep the combo on, but that'll finish us off for our first rice pick of the pool.
Yeah. And moving on to the second pick.
Absolutely. We'll get into Rice 2, and this will be Nosha Sakuretsu Girl cut version, Sakuretsu chord stream difficulty. From the difficulty name, I guess you could probably figure out what this map's all about. 155 BPM by X Neko. This is going to be our chord stream pick. These patterns are pretty straightforward. I mean, 158 BPM or 55 BPM, not too difficult to handle either. They do get notably denser than what we saw in Rice 1, and on top of that, this one has notably fewer breaks. So the stamina aspect of this map will be a little bit harder to handle than what we saw from Rice 1.
Yeah, we do see a lot of double stairs on this map as well. It's gonna be quite visually pleasing, I guess.
Visually pleasing for sure. Easy to play?
No.
Not so much. I've always seen chord stream as something that, like, as a 4-key player, I have like weird analogies that I make to everything that kind of happens, but chord stream for me always felt like the same things that like chord jack was in 4-key, where there's a certain point where you can learn how to play 155 BPM dense chord stream, and once you get there, it's really straightforward to do. But if you're not at that point, the reading aspect and the accuracy aspect can really take a hit if you're not quite there. And that might not end up being the case for this because of how straightforward this is compared to maybe what we'll see later on in the pool, but that is still something that I think should be kept in mind.
Yeah, we do also have these like small brackets there that pop up once in a while. If you're gonna as good as brackets, they might be a little bit tricky once in a while to do.
Yeah, for sure. But even with the fewer breaks, this is still only 1 minute and 41 seconds, so an extremely short map. I think the shortest in the pool. So even if the stamina is going to have to be taken into account, definitely gives you a little bit of leeway with the shortened length of it.
Yeah. And next up we have Panda Eyes Termite High School here. This is a song most people know about.
What a throwback.
Yeah. This is our Kojak map by Copyhat. It's 110 BPM, so it's not the crazy fast speeds, but it overall has pretty comfy patterns. You're gonna see mostly one-handed patterns with some two-handed jacks once in a while, but super comfy overall.
Yeah, I think the patterns overall are pretty comfortable. There's 2 main sections where that density really hits you, and they're the sections you'd expect them to be. As long as you know the song. But what I think is notable about this is that the structure of the jack patterns does change slightly between the 2 sections. Where this first one, like you said, very, very like one-handed. Like you can see it swapping from the right hand to the left hand and back for each of those like 2-note series. And then you have a little bit of the mix-up when it gets a little bit more intense with the music. But the second section, I think, does change that structure a little bit and makes it more of a... it doesn't switch from one hand to the other. It kind of does more of a flowy type pattern between the two. So it makes
like
it a little more difficult.
The ending section is gonna be almost all two-handed jacks, so that part is gonna be pretty hard for people to actually do. We do also see a few longer jacks in here, some slight long jacks, though, but they're pretty isolated overall.
Yeah, we saw a couple 4-note jacks, but usually when you have those like 3 and 4-note jacks in this map, you'll usually see the density kind of drop off a little bit more so than what we saw in that earlier section. So it should be more than doable for all these players, especially, like you said, 110, a little bit on the lower side. So it should be very doable. A little bit of a section here I would call this a little bit of a break. It gets away from the jack patterns. You'll have like a little mini jack every now and again, but it kind of just gets you ready for the ending, which, like you said, has mostly two-hand patterns.
Yeah, and here we get into the ending. A little bit of a build-up into it, and here we go. Just have these bracket-like jacks going across the screen.
Very visually pleasing patterns in this ending part.
They're gonna be a little bit trickier to play than the rest of the map, I think. But I think it might still be a ratio battle for some people.
Oh, absolutely. I do not doubt that this is going to be a ratio battle. I mean, 5,300 just on our replay. I can see so many players doing even better than that in a map like this where there's no awkward rhythms or anything like that.
Yeah.
But speaking of awkward rhythms, we can move on to Rice 4. This is going to be 2L. I think it's 2L. I don't know how to pronounce that. But Vanguard 3, if you know the artist, you know what kind of song you're signing yourself up for. This is going to be relatively straightforward patterns, but the rhythms are really what you need to watch out for. This is made by Lenpai, and what you'll notice for this map is that you'll have a lot of this broken jump stream type stuff, which isn't terribly difficult to deal with, accuracy-wise right at the beginning. But as the song develops, it'll start introducing more and more polyrhythms to it, which are mapped as polyrhythms and make the accuracy portion of this a lot more difficult, especially with that OD 8.5.
Yeah, this one is super tricky, especially if you're not the greatest at getting the rhythm down and would rather have some continuous patterns. This one is really tough for you. I think this might get banned, a bit.
I would not be surprised to see Rice teams maybe opting for the ban on something like this, especially against if they are to be facing higher seeded opponents who have the edge on getting good accuracy and reading through really difficult polyrhythms. And you got a little bit of a taste of that there in that section, but it only starts to get worse in this last third.
Yeah, now we see here these polyrhythms. They have they're also pretty tricky to hit in general because they're on the same column. So
yeah. And not only that, you can see a pretty clear motif with some of those notes being repeated on the same columns to the sounds, but sometimes those are intermingled with anchors on those same notes, and that in particular is really difficult to handle.
So that was our tech map for this pool. And moving on to the next one, we have Sparks Switcheroo, a map by Big Maxis here. This is our mixed rice pick. It's gonna have a little bit of everything, honestly. You're gonna see different sections that have speed, tech, chord stream, but then also mix them together quite a bit. So we're starting off here with a short intro chord stream, really.
Yeah, and I think interesting to know about this is that this is a little faster than our regular chord stream pick. It'll be in the middle of a whole lot of different picks. I think the most important part about this is that because there are so many different types of patterns throughout this, I think they're a little more comfortable than you might have normally expected. I think this might be a big favorite for players in this pool. I personally think it's my favorite of the rice picks. Just because everything flows so well, and I think that's going to work well for it as like the mixed rice pick. Really make sure the players are comfortable with everything they can be, even if they don't need to be like as good as you might need to be for rice 1 on like the speedier patterns.
Yeah, and getting into here, we have the fast sweeps throughout the section. These like short little bursts. Then we have a little bit of a break here in the middle, where you can like regain your composure if you lost it before getting into the
it's very easy to lose your composure on a map that changes as much as this does. Got a little bit of a chord stream section here, but this is very light, pretty straightforward. Yeah. Potentially even more of an opportunity to get yourself back into the swing of things, to prepare for what the ending has to offer, which will be a little bit on the denser side with the chord stream, but also just be basically a mix of everything we've got.
Yeah. Another little break here to gain your composure right before the end once again. The stamina definitely should not be an issue here on this one. We see a little burst here, small burst. They're gonna maybe be tricky to accuracy, we'll see. And here we go, the ending.
Definitely the hardest part of this map. Gets a little faster, gets a little denser, has some of those mini jacks in the bursts there. Lightens up a little bit, but we just got a few more patterns in this ending that can be choke material if you're not prepared for them, but shouldn't be too much of an issue. And that'll finish off our rice section.
Yeah, and moving on, we have a pretty anticipated thing. Okay, we're moving on to our hybrid maps first. Then, we got.
I see. Yeah, that's not how it's
hybrid
here.
1. Tejimo Yogi Yomogi. Usuva Kangero. Sorry for pronouncing.
Just as good a job as I would have done on that.
As a map by Yi, this is our generic hybrid map. We're gonna see, actually, like as I alluded to in the Qualifier Showcase, we're gonna have quite a lot of longer long notes throughout this as well, during the hybrid maps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this will have a lot more of those longer long notes that you have to like coordinate around, but I think the most significant part of this map, like as a part of the map pool, is that this is going to have mostly straightforward patterns that you just kind of have to coordinate the pretty pervasive rice patterns just with those extended long notes. And you get a couple of isolated rice sections, but most of the time you're going to be having to deal with those longer LNs just kind of intruding on the patterns.
Yeah. Tried to make it a lot more mixed this year. So the generic hybrid map is going to be what we would maybe find in the rank section as a hybrid map. Just very generic. I think most people will probably like this map. It's just pretty comfy for most people. Something people are pretty used to playing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the players that are playing in this MWC and will be duking it out on these Mappools, I think this is about as comfortable as it gets. At least hybrid-wise. Maybe not necessarily for everyone, but I think this is just. There's not really a whole lot to say. It kind of has the same themes throughout it. I do think the second half is a little bit easier than the beginning, because that beginning did involve a lot of interweaving like multi-long notes, and you can see that again here at the ending. But even then, I still think that the beginning patterns were potentially a little bit harder to handle. So if you're able to get through that beginning, I think you'll have a pretty good time with this map.
Yeah. And then we reach the end of here. A little tricky burst at the end. And then
classic.
Moving on to one of the harder picks in the pool, I want to say. We're going to have the technical hybrid here. It's going to be BPM Ichigo Kyo Yumo. And this was a map by X-Neko. We're gonna actually see some pretty tricky long note patterns and fast burst.
Yeah, this is an interesting map. I think it has some of the same qualities where you'll see a lot of those longer LNs just kind of be invasive, but I think the long notes definitely have more of long notey type patterns and are a little bit separated from a lot of the rise. So you'll see a lot of sections with like bursts and like dumpy burst and jack patterns, but you'll also see when you get these choruses, you'll see a lot of these just mixed long note patterns with some difficult to coordinate patterns just in general.
Also
then,
a few shields.
Yeah, and a few shields. That's definitely true, and that can mess you up. But you'll also get these like isolated rice patterns, which is a little different from what we saw from Hybrid 1.
Yeah, these paths here in particular, I think, are gonna be pretty tricky for long note wise.
Definitely are. We'll get into one of these verse sections, and those long notes kind of just don't really go away. You still have some of those extended ones, but still a little bit on the easier side of a pattern-wise. But can't escape those mini jacks in the middle of those long notes, and those in particular are pretty hard to coordinate.
Yeah. We do also see some unorthodox patterns, like we saw the heart pattern earlier, and we're actually gonna see it here again soon. Once we get into the second chorus after the little break section here.
Yeah, another similar build-up, and like you said, ends the build-up with those long note patterns with the heart there, and then kind of similar to the first one, but this time it has more of a focus on the jack patterns instead of the bursts. They are still flam jack patterns, so the accuracy isn't going to be super easy to get, but the OD6 should help handle the accuracy side of that.
There were a few longer jack patterns in there, but just a little bit. But now we get back into the hybrid here.
Yeah, just a repeat of what we saw from the first chorus there then. And that'll finish off our second hybrid. We've got one more hybrid to get through, and this will be the longest map of our regular pool. This is going to be Zyrus's Crash Landing Rendezvous. It's 3 minutes and 16 seconds, another low OD at 6.5, made by Ironiosu. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But
it's just Ironosu.
Okay, Ironosu. But this is going to be, honestly, in my opinion, the hardest map in the pool, the regular pool. Obviously, notwithstanding the actual tiebreaker, but this is listed as a tiebreaker-esque pick, and I think that's pretty apt. It has pretty isolated sections. We've got this intro, which has a pretty heavy chord stream focus. So you get a lot of that rice-heavy patterns that are, in my opinion, harder than what we've seen in a good portion of the rest of the pool. And then it moves into more of a long note section, and the ending will hit you with a very hybridy section that hits you with as much as it can, on top of it being 3 minutes long.
Yeah, we do see a little bit of tech here as well. Just a tiny bit of rice tech. This is gonna have a little bit of everything. That's kind of the goal for this, to just be like a smaller tiebreaker in the pool. Pretty tricky transition there.
Definitely, I mean, this whole map is just tricky in general. Pretty fast jack patterns as well there, mixed in with some of these pretty technical long note patterns. I imagine this is going to be heavily favored by the higher seeded teams, just because, like I said, I find this to be the most difficult pick in the regular pool, and it just could also end up being fan bait for a lot of teams. Like this, I think, is physically difficult enough on a lot of different zones that it could cause trouble for especially a lot of lower seeded teams.
Yeah. And we gotta get into the second half now. And I think the second half is gonna be a lot more hybrid focused instead of just being just one type of pattern. We're gonna see the rice and the long notes really mixing.
Yeah, we're already seeing some pretty difficult patterns both ways. We saw some tricky technical long notes with some shields and some faster bursts that we're already trying to see. And then some density long notes that just transitions in and out with some of those earlier technical patterns that we saw.
Yeah.
And that.
And now we're you have a little bit of a break here. Not quite a break, but you know, this is the most break you're gonna get until for the ending here. Where you see long notes that are going on one hand mostly, and then you're gonna do rice patterns with the other. It's gonna be pretty tricky, but until they get mixed in here.
Yeah, and what you can also hear in the song too is slight BPM changes in the song throughout this. You can see that it goes from 128 to 190. Usually it's a 190 BPM song, but it does have some slight changes that you'll have to be able to pay attention to. A little bit of a rehash of what we saw in that intro with, or at least at the beginning with those chord stream patterns, just to finish off that map. And like I said, potentially hardest map in the pool. Going to have to watch out for that as a player, but that'll finish off our hybrid pool.
Yeah. Now we're getting into the most anticipated category change. We have Neko Haka Shadows featured. This is the negative space difficulty by Surfju. This is gonna be our inverse map. So Gone is release and in is inverse. Gonna be very exciting to see what players think of this, but it's not gonna be complete full inverse, as you can see. It's just it's more so a map filled with inverse patterns quite a lot. It's gonna be quite a bit slower than the other maps, at least physicality wise.
Definitely is going to be slower than the other long note maps physicality wise. Important to know. Like you said, that this isn't going to be primarily inverse through the whole thing. Like it's not going to be 7-note inverse for the whole thing, but there are sections at the end where there is 7-note inverse, where the patterns are going to be a little less dense than what we're seeing here, but they still exist. So you still do have to watch out for that. You get to have fun with one of your hands on that pattern. The 4-note inverse on the left or the right hand. Good luck splitting that with your thumb.
Yeah, I think this map was actually really fun to play test. Gonna see how players think of this category as well, of course, but
another case of
interesting.
Either you can do it or you can't is 7-key inverse, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But this is kind of in between, I think. It's not quite fully you can't do it, because it's still pretty simple patterns, all things considered. It's pretty slow, so you get time to think about it.
Get time to think about it. It doesn't really change anything for some people. And like I said, this is where we get into like the actual full 7-column inverse. But these are much easier patterns. Pretty much every 1/4 there has a note. A little bit, got your triples, your doubles, your quads, so still have to worry about it, but that should not be the main bulk of the difficulty, I think, for most players there.
Yeah. And moving on to long note 2, we're gonna have Rejection, a white canvas, feed Aitsuki Nakuru. This is an Osu edit. This is gonna be our long note density map by Long P. One thing, there's gonna be a little bit of change this year. You're gonna see longer long notes as well in the long note density map. Last year they were all pretty short long notes throughout, and it was just full density. But we're gonna have some longer long notes as well this time.
Making sure that even if it's the easiest to take care of as, like, you know, a Rice primary player, there's still like that difficulty with some of the coordination throughout it and the reading and stuff, which wasn't necessarily apparent in previous years' density picks.
Yeah. Have a little bit of a break section here before we get back into it. The build up.
Yeah, got that build up, and we'll be getting into this chorus that starts with this on the second half of this map. I do think that this map is going to be probably the most popular of the long note picks. I could see LN3 doing that, but we'll get to that. But I've always seen the LN density picks be popular throughout a tournament, and this should be no exception. It's even with some of the extended long notes, it's very straightforward, and I think a lot of the players are going to like a map like this.
do see a little bit of tricky one-handed overlaps there with some of the long notes there in that section. Might trip some people up who are not too comfortable with it, but we'll see.
Absolutely, but we got a little bit of a rehash of the intro here. So as long as you can get through the intro, you should be able to do this part of it and get through to the end of our second long note pick.
Yeah. And last map before the tiebreaker here, we have long note 3. And this is gonna be Yagdrig Sakase Natsu Zora Koi no Hana.
I'm just gonna
This
call it fireworks. I think that's easier to say.
this is gonna be a map by Muses. This is our long note map, long note mix map. We're actually gonna start out here in the first half with mostly it being like smaller burst patterns, and then the second half being more consistent patterns.
Yeah, I would call this, in my opinion, the easiest of the long note picks. I think this is the least dense for sure. You won't see very many situations where there's a lot going on all at once. It kind of just is your wild card. You got a little bit of a combination of the density that'll come around. Some awkward patterns, you got some of those mini jacks thrown throughout it. Some slight dense patterns, but you usually won't get more than a double happening at any time get with those denser long note sections. So I think this is going to be something that's more approachable, I think, for teams that aren't necessarily super strong at long notes.
Yeah. Here we have a little bit of break before we get into the main chorus, honestly, of the song, where you're gonna see it get a lot more consistent after a little bit of a build-up here.
Yeah, a little bit of a return of some of those denser long note patterns we were seeing in the beginning section of this map, and I think the second half is really going to be the defining part of this map, because this is where kind of the intense sections of music come from, and it starts to get a little more consistently dense. I think that's where really the accuracy and the combo is going to be determined.
Yeah. Here we see these longer long notes. Still pretty chill mostly. It's gonna be just a few long notes you're gonna have to hold in for quite a while actually.
Yeah, and then this ending has a little bit of a tricky section. You get a little bit of a slow section there. It is not the easiest to hold on to coordination-wise. You do have some awkward overlaps, especially on some of those one-handed patterns. But again, like I said, shouldn't be really too much to handle for anyone. I really could see this as being almost as popular as LN2 for some of these teams.
Yeah. A little outro here with some long note rolls there. And now we have the tiebreaker coming up next. It is gonna be Camellia, the Lost Place in the New World. This is by PWHK this year. And this one is gonna have a little bit of everything as well. It's gonna be it's pretty tricky, honestly. Especially here at the start, we're gonna get into some coordination inverse type of thing here as soon as we get into a little bit more past the
Yeah.
beginning here.
I think important to, I guess the most important thing to kind of see like about how this map flows is that the first half of this map, or third of this map, is primarily focused on long notes. There's a lot of difficult long note sections, and you can see already we're seeing, even in the slow section, a little bit of a tricky coordination long note type section, some tricky patterns, and those tricky long note patterns do kind of turn into more of like your density and your mixed patterns as it starts to build up. But the ending is where you start to get those very technical rice patterns in the chord stream sections that come around. Which it kind of has a similar structure to what we saw from the mini tiebreaker, that hybrid 3, where it kind of has isolated sections where you have like a long note section that kind of goes for whatever amount of time, a rice section that's pretty isolated from the long notes, and then the ending kind of hits you with just full-on hybrid, goes over everything that can possibly happen.
Yeah, here we see some of these tricky long notes, but then not without rice notes. There are some rice notes sprinkled in that are actually gonna be a little bit tricky, especially with these patterns. Yeah, I think most of the rice difficulty is gonna be towards the end, definitely, as Toph said.
Get a little bit of a slower section here where it's mostly just single long notes extended with some rice patterns around it. But get a little bit of a break from those really heavy long notes that we saw in that first section.
Yeah. And then we're gonna get into the next section here, which is a little bit of coordination. We have these super long notes going on while you have to hit these little flams, grace notes.
Not too bad in terms of coordination, but is still a little bit tricky with some of those extensions, like that second column holding on through the change in the chord there, and now section 3 doing the same thing. Get a little bit of break, but it starts to ramp up here, and we'll be getting into a little bit more of a mixed section after this.
Yeah, these trills can actually be a little bit tricky. They're just going on quite a bit on the spacebar there. Gonna see quite a few brackets later as well, especially in the right sections. Just a little bit of a small chord jacks going into the chorus with a big burst there.
And here we go into that mix section that I was mentioning after that build-up. Very one-handed patterns, honestly. You see them kind of isolated to one hand at a time, where you gotta swap between those long notes, and then it swaps into that chord stream section. Really dense stuff, a little slower than what we saw from our actual chord stream pick in the pool, but a little bit denser as well, and you still have to make sure you're paying attention to those transitions into the long notes. We're going back into some LN sweeps and even a little bit denser than what we saw from the early section that kind of sounds the same as this.
Yeah, there's a little bit of tricky long note section there, and then we have a little bit of tech section here towards the end. It's gonna be going more into rice, but have some small bursts in between, so it's not gonna be like consistent. There's gonna be these small breaks and small bursts. And a bunch of brackets there as well.
That looked like a really fun polyrhythm. Good luck with that one. And then it definitely just starts to keep getting denser. Those jacks make more of an appearance with the density at 150 BPM. Kind of awkward burst there, actually.
Yeah, it's a little bit tricky here. But then here for the ending, it's just gonna be slowly fading out. Pretty chill.
Yeah, a little bit of a cooldown section to finish up the map, and that will be the end of our tiebreaker and the end of our round of 32 Mappool Showcase. Those are going to be the maps that are played next weekend between all 32 teams who qualified. I'm really excited to see how these players approach this map pool.
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how everybody do on these. We're gonna see as well how players receive all of these things, and especially with the new category, Inverse pulling up this year.
Absolutely, I think it's gonna be a fun time. I'm really excited to see what happens next weekend, but schedules will be released shortly, and we hope you guys come back next week. Make sure to not miss the 16 matches that will be happening next week. You got anything else to say before we sign off?
Yeah, maps will be up soonish. We'll see. Most of our mappers are all asleep, so I'll get them uploaded as fast as we can, of course. And remember to leave feedback. We love that.
Yeah, all right. But that's going to be it. Like I said, hope to see you guys next week for Osu 7 Key World Cup 2025's round of 32 weekend, as well as the round of 16 map pool. We'll see you guys then.